Hey everybody, my name is Mark, also known as Petrify on the Discord or in-game. I'm one of the game designers who mostly focuses on balance. I thought I'd be opening some of the Genesis packs that our users have opened and looking through and maybe giving you some advice on the cards or some insight into the game design behind them. For anyone wondering, Genesis is a limited edition set of cards that is evergreen, which means it's always going to be around and is only available before launch or until we sell a certain amount of ETH. So feel free to come check them out and watch me open some packs. Cool. For our first pack, what do we get? I'm very excited. These are all from the community, so we've picked some of the better ones. Wow. So we have a diamond common card out of its misery. So one of only 55. So that means only 55 in the entire world, provably right now. And it is called Out of Its Misery. It's a war card. It deals 1 damage to a friendly creature. If that creature dies, then you draw a creature from your deck and give it +3/+3. This is a really powerful card that essentially lets you trade something on the board now for something even bigger later, and it's very useful if you have afterlife based creatures in your deck, because you can get some value out of actually killing your creature and then just get a huge one out later. And just before Out of Its Misery, we've opened Flying Carpet, which is a really cool card. I love it. It's a pretty strong stat line, being 1 mana 3/1 with pick 1, gain ward, or 4C1. So it's very dynamic and very flexible. If you get it early on, you can usually probably use it for C, because you're not going to really need the ward very early, but later on if you get it, you probably won't need the for C and you can play it with ward. So very interesting card that's very dynamic. Cool, so we have Penitent Spear. This is a 6 mana 5/2 weapon. It has God Blitz, and whenever you attack, give strength +2 to a random friendly creature. So it's very powerful with a lot of stats, and if you combine this with the Slayer God power, you get just a consistent amount of huge value. And usually what you're going to want to do with this weapon is attack your opponent, their god, with the weapon, and then use the strength to start trading off for some creatures. Cool, so we have Shadow Slash next, which is a very flexible card. You either have the ability to deal 4 damage to a creature or 4 damage to an opponent, and if you deal that damage to the opponent, you have to look at the top 4 cards of their deck, and this lets you plan really well for what's coming in the future, which is what you want to be doing as a Magic deck. And lastly, we have Ragnarok as a rare card. So this is an awesome one. Deal 3 damage to all gods, so you and your opponent, and then you give burn +3 to all creatures. So it's a very cheap card that really just basically says, okay, let's just restart this game. All the creatures are gonna die, all the small creatures anyway. Very cheap mana cost too. Cool, so we've got our next pack here, and ooh, we have a gold version of Engaged Enchanter. This is really nice, one of only 256. I did speak about this card before, but yeah, it's just a really nice engine card for those spell-based 4C decks, and it goes really well with cards like Runic Familiar that also care about you playing spells. So I'd be looking to get a lot of really cheap 1 mana spells like Seeing Stone in the deck as well, just so you can play Engaged Enchanter, play the Bag of Tricks, and then play Seeing Stone, Runic Familiar, etc. So really nice color on this one. I like the gold a lot. Cool, so we've got Omnipresence here. This is a 3 mana death card, a 2/2, and it says raw, copy the strength and health of a random creature from your void. So I feel that this card hasn't unlocked its full potential yet, and we're going to probably see a lot of cards in the future that are maybe putting really big creatures into your void early on, and Omnipresence might become an absolute powerhouse. So whilst this card right now may be a little underwhelming, in the future I'd be very bullish on having this card explode in value. Spellbound. So Spellbound's a core, I shouldn't say core because that is our set, but it's a very important card to the Deception Sleep archetype. It's basically just 1 mana, give sleep to 2 creatures, which is a very simple card, but it enables a lot of other really powerful sleep cards, and sleep is an archetype of controlling deception decks that we are looking to expand heavily in the future, and I can't see Spellbound ever falling out of those decks because it is pretty efficient. It's giving sleep to 2 creatures for a very small amount of mana. Reformation. Cool card, and very likely to see a buff in the future. It says set a creature's strength to 1 and give it health +1. So this is a way of dealing with huge threats that your opponent plays, or if you have a very cheap 1 mana creature and you just want to, quickly give it some health, it can work in a flexible way like that. But we are looking to make this a little bit better, as it's not quite as good as dealing with threats as we would like it. Wow, what a pack. We a diamond and an epic. So we have Synergy Golem, which is if you control at least 2 other creatures, select 2. Randomly, one gains Twin Strike and the other gains Can't Attack. So Synergy Golem is a very hard one to use properly, and it's a little bit luck based, but it makes for some fun gameplay. So it is a bit over the stat lines that you would expect for a 3 mana card, so it does have a downside. So the trick with this is to play creatures that you don't mind not being able to attack. So I would most likely see this played in death decks with things that you don't mind sacrificing to make your other things bigger, so that you can get an advantage out of the Twin Strike. So our next pack here. Three's a Crowd. So this is an epic card. Return 2 target creatures to their own controller's hand and summon a 4/3 Golem. So this is a very high tempo card. So more often than not, you're going to be using it to remove your enemy's creatures and then summoning a 4/3 Golem. So if your opponent plays like 2 big creatures and you just get rid of both of them and summon a 4/3 Golem, your opponent is so far down on the amount of mana that they've spent, because they have to re-spend that mana to really catch up. And Three's a Crowd is also pretty likely to get buffed in the future. It is maybe a bit too expensive, so we could look at lowering the mana cost just a little bit. But this is a card that I really, really love the flavor of as well. Obviously, all about the art is really cool as well, with the golem down the bottom and three characters on top. So I am very bullish about this card seeing a lot of play as we move into a more controlling metagame, where maybe Magic and Death control decks play these huge heavy hitters at the end, and Deception just says, oh whatever, you can play it again and I get a golem. So Arms Trafficker is a 2 mana 1/4 that is neutral, and add a random enchanted weapon to each player's hand. So what you want to be doing with this card is playing cards that care about you having weapons and your opponent not having them. So enchanted weapons rather. So you might want to be playing things like removing durability from your opponent's relics in your deck along with Arms Trafficker, and playing things like Balance Summoner, which make your enchanted weapons cheaper to play. So it is a dual-sided card, but you can really take the most out of that if you make the correct decisions in the deck builder. Dimension Door. This is a really cool combo piece. It's going to see a lot of play in the future. 1 mana, draw a card, and reduces mana cost by 1 if it costs less than your unlocked mana gems. So this is what we call a cantrip, so a card that replaces itself immediately when played. And what's really cool about these cards is they let your deck size become smaller, which makes it more consistent. So normally a deck is 30 cards, but if you have a lot of 1 mana cards that also draw a card, really the size of your deck is becoming, 28, 29, because you have these ones that replace themselves and it only costs 1 mana, which is a huge boon. And then you're also getting the upside of whatever you draw. A lot of the time it will become cheaper, so that might make your combo pieces cheaper later on, so you can do a huge play in 1 turn, which is super cool. Endow Wings, this is an absolute machine of a card. So give a friendly creature ward, and then at the end of your turn, that creature will copy a random card from your opponent's hand and put it in your hand, essentially. And this is something you want to use on maybe a hidden for 1 turn creature, or a protected or backline creature, and you're essentially just drawing an extra card from your opponent's hand every turn, which is insane, because not only are you getting card advantage, but you're also getting information, which is critical for these Magic controlling decks, because you want to make your decisions based off of what your opponent has. And also what's critically important is your opponent doesn't know what card that you've gotten from their hand, so they're going to have to start playing around their own hand. So there's a lot of depth to this card, and I love it personally. It's one of my favorite cards. And lastly, we have Blacksmith Armorer. So this is 3 mana, give +1/+1 to all your creatures in your hand for a 1/1. So Blacksmith Armorer is a very powerful card with the more cards that you have in your hand. So I would be looking to play a lot of cards that draw other cards that are also creature based. So any creature that says draw a card fits really well with Blacksmith Armorer, because you're playing creatures on the board, but you're also keeping your hand very heavy and a lot of stuff in there, which is really important to get the most amount of value out of Blacksmith Armorer.